All right, we're here with the third place finisher from something. Hey, we have something in common, Sage. The third place finisher for Survivor 49. Sage is here. Sage, how are you?
I'm passing away this morning, but I'm here.
Yeah, I know you're not feeling well. Just listen, it's the holiday time of year, traveling. It's not easy, but I appreciate you still making the time to talk about all this. Sage, I thought you had such an interesting journey, and I feel like that there's so much more to your story because I feel like that you were so open and vulnerable with us and the audience, and I think that to a degree with the other players out there. But then when you layered playing a strategic game on top of that, it feels like that there was a disconnect with how the other players receive that.
I don't understand the question. Can you
Yeah,
say, can
okay.
you re
Yeah. I just would love to hear from you where I kind of feel like that you to me were like a little bit like a Carolyn where I felt like that you really, you had a personality, but also a strategic game that was kind of behind the personality. And I feel like it's hard for the other players to reconcile those two things.
Yeah, it's I think something that's been so fascinating throughout this entire experience is cognitively I've understood the concept of we see people through our own lens. Like we see people how we see ourselves, or we see people through our own experiences. And I've always understood what that means, but this experience, I understand what that feels like. Like I understand what it feels like to really know from like a I know what it's like that for myself when I do that. And now I'm aware of like what it's like for other people. And for me, I'm at a point in my life where I am very selective about the people I get close with. I'm a recovering people pleaser. I used to just put everybody else first. Now I have like this nice, tight, weirdo core group. And I forget that in this weirdo core group, we are emotional with each other. And that's not as a perceived as like a negative trait. It's actually like very esteemed. Like it's a very respected quality amongst the people I associate with. And doing this experience and remembering what it's like of like, oh yeah, that's a quality about myself that I didn't always like, and that historically has been deemed as like inferior or negative. Like, and people aren't really talking about emotional, they're talking about emotional dysregulation. And there's a difference between expressing emotion and being dysregulated, right? There's a difference between me crying and me punching you in the face. One of those is very indicative of dysregulation. The other is just our bodies sweat when we're overheated. Our eyes cry when we're overwhelmed, you know?
Yeah. So Sage, do you feel like when you watched the show back, did you feel like that what you saw was in any way different than the experience that you had?
Oh yeah, but not in like a way where it's like just in a way where it has to be different. It's 90 minutes, right? We're filmed 23 hours a day, roughly, 7 days a week, 26 days. And then you're packing that into a 13 90-minute episodes that also have commercial breaks. Like,
Hmm.
of course, like the Survivor, the TV show, is going to be vastly different than Survivor, the game. And that's just unfortunately how it is. And I went into the season knowing like this is going to be edited around Rizzo and Savannah. They go on 50. Like, you have to
Hmm.
hype the people up. So I think for myself and hopefully the rest of the cast, like they had that awareness of like, hey, be prepared for some disappointment. Not everything's going to be shown. And you hear past players talk about it all the time of like, this wasn't shown, this wasn't shown. So I was like, oh, okay, so most things won't be shown.
Yeah. How about going into the final tribal council? When you went into that final tribal council that night, how were you expecting it to go?
Not well in my favor. There's so much, if we had hours, we could really dissect this, but um,
Yeah, I have
I,
the time, Sage.
hey, hit me up, dude. But like, I'm this is gonna sound super like hippie, whatever, but like I do believe in energy and you can feel people's energy. And
Sure.
especially when you have a large group that all feels similarly and have been like festering in these feelings, like it is palpable. Like it is like,
Yeah.
oh, I'm uncomfortable. Like there's something in here. And I'm pretty sure when I pair that with what I'm observing of like body language or reactions to how I'm answering questions versus how Savannah and Soph, I'm like, it took by question three, I was aware of like, oh, these people hate me. And I guess I can't speak for them, but they did not like me. The tribal was edited, was not, did not show the full extent of people were there was a lot of disdain towards me, and it
Yeah, they
was
weren't feeling you anymore.
they weren't feeling me, and I don't think they were feeling me ever. Like a part of my strategy was like leaning into different parts of myself that even if those aren't the parts that tend to be in the driver's seat these days, they're parts I'm familiar with, like insecurity. I have struggled, as we all do. And if anyone says they don't have insecurities, I'm like, I got bad news for you. But I I know what it's like to not like myself. I know what it's like to think that I'm nothing. And I'm not at that place anymore, but I will never forget what it feels like to be there. And it benefited me to come off as like insecure or kind of aloof in the game because it allows me to fly under the radar versus sometimes like my country accent will come out so strong. And that's usually it's like a defense mechanism, I guess, territory of defense mechanisms of a lot of people perceive me as a bitch when they first see me. I think just because like I'm aware that my affect is like not super typical or normal. And um it matters if you're being perceived as a bitch, like people are mean to you. So like I've noticed when I put on the country accent, and I don't do it intentionally, but it comes out when I'm feeling uncomfortable, is like, oh, this kind of disarms people. They're like, oh, she's not a bitch, she's just stupid, because people equate a southern accent with ignorance. But we could go in a whole socio.
That's a whole different story. Yeah, Sage, because I was thinking about your game yesterday, and I was comparing you to a lot of times we see in the final tribal council that there is a mom who then betrayed people in the game, and
Mm,
people get very upset with that person. How could you do this? And it's like one thing where it's like, okay, I maybe didn't have that emotional connection with Savannah, and she did what she did, but maybe I wasn't expecting this from you and my guard was down because of you. And then you did this to me. Like, I can't forgive what you did in the game. I wonder, do you feel like there's anything to that?
yeah, I do. I appreciate you saying that because and by the way, I don't judge people for that. Like that's I understand. Like I've been there too. But for me, I think a really eye-opening part of this experience is similar to what I was saying before of like I am in my own bubble these days. I don't really leave my house. I don't associate like it takes me like weeks to respond to texts. I forget that the rest of the world is not like my small bubble. And in my small bubble, we talk about weird stuff, but we also talk really deep. I can't surface level conversation is my kryptonite. I can't do it. But the second
Hmm.
that you sit down and you want to be vulnerable with me, I'm going to hold space for you and I'm going to make sure you don't feel judged and that you just feel heard and seen because I know how much it feels when I've felt heard and seen. It's like transformative and healing. I think the problem is I'm a therapist for a living. I have to compartmentalize. If I don't, I will be burnt out and I won't have a job. So for me, I have hard conversations every day, multiple times a day, just as my job. For me, I'm able to compartmentalize those and not let those factor into like be in the driver's seat. And I think to your point, I think my strategy of coming off as an emotional player worked a little bit too well because people thought that they could just manipulate me through appealing to emotions. Like,
Yeah.
right? Of like, we don't really have to get to know Sage because we already know how she's going to vote. She's an emotional player, so she's going to lead with her heart. She's not going to be strategic at all. And so when you have these human moments, I said this in my pregame interview, I think with Mike Bloom, for me, the human moments, those are 100% real. This cast labels me as emotionally manipulative, and I understand why they feel that way. It doesn't change my truth that every single moment where any one of them was vulnerable with me, that, oh, it gives me life. But it's not going to give you an advantage or a disadvantage when it comes to my strategic decision making in the context of a game. If we were outside of a game, that's a different story. But we're in a game for $1 million. So I have to compartmentalize. Thank you for being vulnerable with me. Now I'm putting my game hat back on, and that does like that didn't even happen in the game, in the context of the game. Does that make sense?
Yes, I definitely makes sense. And honestly, Sage, I think that this is the way that my wife approaches a lot of things. So I
Oh,
definitely understand what you're saying. How about
shout out.
your relationships with the other players after the game? How, because I know that you had an interesting ride, certainly with Shannon and some of the jurors. So where are things with the other players?
Uh, it's hard be like a problem I've run into my whole life is I call out the elephant in the room and then I get labeled as the problem. But in my mind, I'm like, wait, why wouldn't we talk about the elephant? Like we're all tiptoeing around it. It's uncomfortable. Like if we just acknowledged it and like held space for each other without shaming each other and just tried to listen and understand, then we wouldn't have to tiptoe around this huge freaking elephant. But
Hmm.
the elephant in the room for me at least is tribal was very different than how it was portrayed. It was I love Sophie Segretti. She has validated. She's like, Sage, we treated you like a punching bag. And I was like, thank you. I said, we can't change that. And I'm not gonna kick like being accountable is uncomfortable as hell. So when someone is like coming at me with accountability, first and foremost, respect. I'm going to respect you. I'm not gonna make you feel crappier because I already know how hard it is to be like, hey, like with Shannon stuff, right? Like intent versus impact. I never intended to hurt her, but that was the impact. And I will own that. That like I'm not gonna like invalidate that for her. But all that being said, there's some people that I still haven't like we haven't spoken. And I tried to hold a round table at Fiji before we left for back to the States to be like, okay, so there was a lot of emotion at tribal directed towards me. Like, I want to understand. Can we talk about it? And people continued to like argue with every like thing that I was bringing up. And I was like, okay, it hurt, but in my head I was like, Sage, don't take it personally. They're not ready yet. And that's fair. Just I'm ready for uncomfortable conversations right off the bat, but not everyone's like that and you have to respect everyone's own pace. So I've really just tried to stand back and let people like, okay, come to me when you're ready. And there's a few people I'll reach out, I'm like, hey, I just want to let you know, like Steven as an example, I'm like, I blindsided the crap out of you. It would make sense if there was feelings. And you could tell Steven was very unhappy with me after I voted him out, which I did not calculate for. And I'm like, hey, you can tell me directly, Sage, I'm mad at you. You hurt me. You know, like give me that. I'm not going to judge you. I'm not going to get defensive. It is so healing when someone can just hold space for you to be like, you hurt me and I want you to know. But I can't do the passive aggressive of, I'm not going to say you hurt me, but I'm going to try to pawn out, project my emotions on you for you to hold. I'm a recovering people pleaser. I can't do that anymore.
Sage, was there one decision that you made in the game that you feel like when you look back, you wish you did it differently, or do you feel like that there's nothing that you could have changed that would have ultimately resulted in you winning?
You know, it's so I have to remind myself constantly watching these, especially Survivor, the TV show. I have to remind myself constantly, like, Sage, what did you know at the time? Like the Sophie Segretti vote out, for example. Everyone views that as strictly emotional. And I'm like, don't get me wrong. As I said in Final Tribal, like there was an emotional element. And also I fumbled that question at Final Tribal. Like that wasn't, there's so much, we'll talk later about that. But like I oh crap, Rob. I lost the train of thought. What was the
Yeah, so
question?
you were talking about that. Was there something that you could have done differently? And you said
Oh,
that the
gotcha,
Sophie
gotcha.
Segretti.
Yes. So with what wasn't shown the next day is that Sophie, oh, honey, you can't come right there. My dog's got a donut on. He's about to knock this over. Um, I was like, the next day, Sophie, like, I'm doing damage control, right? I'm like, I'm thinking that I'm going home. So I'm like, I want all these people to not be comfortable putting me on the jury. So I am emotional, but I'm also leaning into it of like, yeah, I want you guys to think I'd be like hella irrational. But Sophie, I never calculated for her to turn on me. That was like never a thing in my head that could happen, which was my misstep. And so when that did happen, now I'm like, I just lost my number one. Steven was my number two for sure, but now he also was on the wrong side of that vote and he's trying to do damage control. And his version of damage control was ruining my version of damage control. I'm like, crap, Steven's gonna come out on top. But with Sophie the next day, I said, Soph, you just handed Savannah $1 million. She goes, no, Sage, I didn't. Like, I think I could go toe to toe with her at the end. And that's when it clicked. I was like, that's what Sophie Segretti would want. She is a fierce competitor. She wants to go to the end with Savannah, not because she likes Savannah, but because that is how Sophie is. She is the fiercest competitor I've ever met. The other thing that happened was I was talking to Savannah. I was like, "Hey, Savannah, I'm sorry to write your name down, but like you're a huge slut." She's like, "Sage, I don't understand why you think that." I was like, "Multiple people have said they won't write your name down, Sophie B and Rizzo," and she was like, "Well, people have said that about you, Sage." I was like, "Nobody has said that to my face." She goes, "Well, Sophie Segretti," and I was like, "She has not said that to me." Rob, 10 minutes later, I'm in the hammock. Sophie Segretti walks past me in front of everybody in camp, by the way, pauses, lowers her voice. But the thing in my head, I'm like, you're lowering your voice, but you're still pausing to talk to me in front of everybody, which means that you're comfortable doing this in front of everybody, which means that whatever you're about to say to me, you're comfortable if anybody else sees or hears it because they already know, they potentially know that there's like, it's a lie or something.
Yeah.
She says, she like pauses, steps back 10 minutes after the Savannah conversation. She goes, Sage, I don't know if I've ever said this to you, but I would never write your name down. And I was like, crap, are Sophie and Savannah still working together? So I legitimately thought I was going home that tribal. And I was like, my best bet, Steven really wants to hold on to his advantage. He's comfortable writing down Sophie's name for doing that. I'm like, my best bet is to put Sophie's name down. As a viewer, it's like, well, why wouldn't you get Savannah out? That was your best time. It's like, well, yeah, but as a viewer, you have so much more information than I had as a player. And as a player, there was too many red flags that indicated I might not be safe this next vote. And I was, but at the time, I can only interpret what I have in
Mhm.
front of me.
Okay. I know you have to run. My last question for you is that I thought that you were such a throwback as a Survivor player. I felt like that you were so real, and I think that you gave us so much to watch as viewers. But I don't know about how you felt about the experience. Would you be open to ever playing Survivor again?
I always say never with things because it's like I don't know how I'd feel in 5 years. But for me personally, no disrespect to the game. It was boring, dude. It
It
was
was
so boring.
boring.
It was so boring.
I don't
I
think
think
anybody's ever said that.
I think maybe with a different like 47, I think I would have had a blast playing with them because I think that they were just
Sage, you
on
wanted to go on Big Brother.
I know, and I'm so glad. No offense, Big Brother, but that's just like when I was in my people pleasing days, Big Brother would have made sense because I do feel like it's a no,
Hmm.
and this isn't anything towards the players, but the editing is like a little bit more like
Yeah.
performative.
Okay.
Like,
I know
but
you
yeah,
got to go. This was not boring. You were not boring. Okay. Thank you so much, Sage. Hope you're feeling better. Have a great
thanks,
holiday.
man.
Okay. All right. Bye.
Happy holidays.
This is RHAP. We know reality TV.